What's going on, guys? This is going to be the summary of markets week 22. We're going to go over SPY, gold, oil, Bitcoin, Ethereum, as always. Let's get started. So if you guys watched last week's video, we talked about how SPY was entering a downtrend. It was starting to break away from that uptrend, but you actually were holding a little bit of support here. So in the last video, I mentioned this pivot here, 298, and then the 50 moving average was like your last form of support before you started to really lose steam here. What we saw right after that video was all of this support kind of came together and pushed price back up. You had the support back here from the big inside bar, or the engulfing bar that started that inside move. And then we had the pivot, and then we had the 50 moving average. They all lined up to give you that support kind of around 300, 298, nice round number. And then you broke this downtrend here, nice strong breakout candle. Not a very good continuation candle, kind of gave you a little gap up and then a doji. Same thing here, not a really strong continuation candle on this day either. Gapped up, you tried to run higher, but then you closed lower. So if I turn off the OTS here, this is actually a black candle, so not the greatest candle we would like to see on resistance. So these two levels that I had marked out here, these are like your local resistance levels. You don't want to see candles like this on resistance right after you broke a downtrend, right? We want to see some continuation. We want to see that follow through. We're not really seeing it. So we're going to have to wait and see kind of how Monday opens. If Monday opens down below the resistance, we could see probably a couple of red days. But if Monday opens above the resistance here and we start to gain strength, we definitely could see like 321 or this gap be filled, right? So we could see that level be tested, or we could start to fill that gap around, let me see, what's that level? Right around 318, 319. So based on what Monday does, keep a bearish bias for now. But if Monday gaps up and breaks this resistance, we definitely could be bullish into this gap fill. But for now, not the greatest candle, probably slightly bearish. What I do like about the momentum is this became like a trap here. So this little move right here, you had a little bit of a trap. The short-term momentum fell pretty rapidly, but now the trend is regaining that trend. So it's regaining that bullish trend. So this could be a trap. Just keep an eye on the OTS trail, the OTS colors. If they turn red, it could be trying to shift back into a downtrend. But for now, it looks pretty good. Nice bounce off support, but you are testing resistance. So just be a little wary. Make sure to keep an eye on how Monday opens. All right, talking about gold here. Last week we talked about how gold was finally trying to break out of this distribution. You started into this nice little breakout. You hit our first target. Our first target was 1800. Second target is 1850. We have not gained that just yet. For now, it is struggling to find momentum above this high, so it is giving you a little bit of a worry. It looks like it wants to come back down, but for now, you're above the pivot, you're above the range high, you're above the trend. You should not be very bearish here until you start to put in a bear div or you really start to lose momentum. You're losing a little bit of momentum here, not too much. So as long as you maintain the trend here, that would probably be your first warning sign. Second warning sign would be a loss of the pivot and the high here. So if we lose that, then we're definitely bearish. But for now, I'd say keep a bullish bias. You look okay for now. Target 1850 for the next bullish target. All right, oil. Oil actually did exactly what we were talking about. I told you guys to be careful. This was putting in a bull trap, or excuse me, bull trap, but it was putting in a signal that looks like it wanted to put in a bull divergence. So I told you guys last week to watch out if you put in a new low, that you might put in a bull div. We didn't actually put in a new low. This is an exaggerated div, so it gave us an equal low. But look at the momentum. Massive bull divergence here off that equal low. So if you guys watched last week's video, this was a really good buy signal here. You bounced off that pivot, and then you started to turn green on the OTS. This even gave you a little bit of a bulldog. So you had the bottom curved back, bottom, pop up, pull back. That gave you the bulldog, and now we're playing out the bulldog. So also during last week's video, I talked about the point of origin being your bullish target. Look at where we failed. We failed right on the bullish target on that point of origin. So it is still bullish. You're still maintaining that uptrend. You're still above the 50. You're above the trail. You're retesting this pivot. It still looks bullish. One thing to note, you did have a little bit of a bear div here, which you are currently kind of playing out. But it looks like it looks like it's already played out. So it looks like it wants to push higher on this current candle. So if the OTS turns green again, the momentum gains, and then we break this resistance, you would target 41.63 as your next target, and then you would just basically follow it up until you get a bear div or a shift in momentum. But I think for now you're okay to maintain a bullish bias. All right, let's go to Bitcoin. Bitcoin basically did exactly what we talked about as well. You just wanted to maintain a bearish bias. You're breaking down from all your supports. Everything on my chart is kind of clustering together in this like 9,500 range as resistance. So it doesn't look too good for Bitcoin. You are currently holding this pivot, which was our first bearish target, excuse me. But once we lose this pivot, you have a little bit of support around 86. And then you don't really have a lot of support until you get down to 8,000. So this thing really could start to fall over quite quickly. I wouldn't be bullish until the OTS turned green above all these resistances. So really probably 9,500, all these resistance levels lining up, the mid-range, the pivots, the 50 moving average, the trail, everything is lining up here as resistance and the downtrend. So until this reclaims that level, I would not be bullish, okay? So maintain a bearish bias. You're targeting 86, you're targeting 8,000 until that flips, okay? All right, last but not least, Ethereum. Ethereum's a little different. You're still kind of putting in that distribution. This trend didn't really act as a trend, so we're going to go ahead and delete that. You kind of are putting in like a new trend. If we look at this right here, you don't really have a bottom trend to go off of. Like we could grab this if we wanted. Not a very clean trend. Maybe the wicks. If we grabbed all of these wicks back here, you could look at something like that. That's not too pretty though. I would just base it off this downtrend here and then just keep the same bias as Bitcoin. You have a lot of resistance kind of above you here. So until you flip that resistance kind of around like 237, I would keep a bearish bias here. You already hit your first target around 216, but that would be your target again, and then your next target would be 204. But same thing here. You don't want to really flip bullish until you start to break all of the resistance above. All right, guys, that's the summary markets. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys had a good holiday this week, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.